Hi, Sandy here. I hope you're well. Today I want to talk a little bit about people not responding, RSVPing to your wedding invitations. I hear this time and time again from my bridal community that they spend a lot of time, effort, energy, money, of course, coming up with a guest list, perhaps coming up with all the different things that they need for the insert for the invitation, or even if this is just going on a wedding website, you've still got to list it all, post it all, and then everything goes out and people don't respond. Now, first of all, this happens to everybody. This has happened with every single wedding that I have ever planned over the last nearly 18 years. So you're not alone if this is happening to you. But there are a few things that you can put in place to try to make it as few people as possible who don't respond. So first of all, why don't people respond? Well, I think to start with, a lot of it is because we're not used to receiving formal invitations these days. That's just the way of the world. A lot of people, particularly younger people, might never have received an informal, or even if your invitations aren't that formal, relatively informal piece of card through the post, which requires them to respond by a certain time and perhaps give information. So it may simply be that they're not quite sure what to do. We're also really not very good at reading things thoroughly these days. Think about how short most magazine and blog articles are that we read. Think about how our lives revolve around scrolling through things quickly, probably while we're doing half a dozen other things at the same time, and possibly even having a conversation. And we don't necessarily take in everything, and if we do take it in, we may not take it in correctly and fully. So I think that's something to start, to think about to start with. It's not you, it's just the way of the world. Timings are really important. Strangely enough, it's actually possible to send out your invitations too early. That might sound a little bit odd, and over the years I have played with sending out invitations anything up to a year in advance, depending on the complexity and of the wedding and where in the world the wedding is. Now, if you're having a destination wedding which involves people in travelling and booking accommodation abroad, etc., then I would say give people a little longer. But particularly if you've sent save the dates out around somewhere between 8 to 10 weeks, probably 10 weeks is the optimum, I would say, is great for sending out your actual physical invitations or referring people, or an email, whatever it might be, some kind of digital invitation, and sending people to a wedding website and or giving them instructions within an invitation insert. That kind of time allows them, enough time to get accommodation booked, to organise childcare if they need to sort out how they're going to get there, how they're going to get back, but not enough time to kind of forget that it's happening. I would generally tend to give people between 4 and 5 weeks to respond. Again, that's ample time for them to sort out all those bits and pieces, sort out a gift if that's part of what you've suggested, but not enough time for them just to kind of stick it in the bottom of their in tray, or the modern equivalent, and forget about it. So I would say give them 4 to 5 weeks to respond. Explain why there is a deadline. And when I say a deadline, I mean always put an RSVP by date on your invitations, whatever kind of invitations we're talking about, digital or physical, because it's a call to action. It just means that we kind of think, right, I need to respond by such and such a time. As I said at the beginning, not everybody will, and please, if they do, then please ping me an email, because I have never achieved it yet, as I say, in nearly 18 years. So if you come up with some amazing trick, then that's great. But you will have people that don't respond. But if you don't put a respond by date on there, then they don't have that kind of impetus, they don't have that reason to respond to you. So always put that on there. It's even more important if you've got a kind of B list or C list, and you've actually put one RSVP date for the first, the A list, but you actually really need time then to send out your second tranche of invitations. Also, remember that not everybody actually knows what RSVP means. It's French, it does mean please respond, but people don't necessarily know that. Again, this is something that is evolved, it's something from a formal invitation style. So don't let that put people off. If you think that a large number of your guests just might not know what it means, put something else. Please respond by, kindly respond. It doesn't matter. You want those responses back. Give people different ways to respond as well, particularly if you've sent out a formal physical invitation to people who are not used to receiving that sort of thing. Make it easy for them. Yes, for sure, I would say if you're sending out physical invitations, put in a response card with everything that you need a response to. So that might be menu choices if you're giving them a choice. You might be offering buses or coaches, which they need to let you know whether they need a place on. You might be talking about accommodation. You might be talking about dietary requirements, all sorts of things. But anything that you actually need a response to with their RSVP, pop it on a card. And if you can afford to, put a stamped addressed envelope in there. You're just making it as easy as you possibly can for everybody. But on top of that, even for a physical formal invitation, I would suggest that you offer an email opportunity. That's a way of responding. An email address. You might even want to use social media channels if that is appropriate to you and your guests. If you've got a wedding website or somewhere that they can respond electronically, digitally, then put that on there too. All I would say is, particularly with the more relaxed means of responding, so perhaps social media channels, for example, if that's how somebody responds and it's the only way they respond, I would just go back and confirm so that you've got it sort of in writing somewhere. And of course, provide as much information as you can, because that negates people ringing with lots and lots of questions. Will they still do it? Yeah, of course they will. They're going to be excited. They want to talk to you. But you will get fewer of those, fewer emails, fewer texts, fewer whatever messages on social media if you have provided as much information as possible. So as I say, all around accommodation, all around timings, all around dietary, menu choices if you've got them. If you're making a statement about whether or not children are invited, then put that in there. That way they've got, dress code as well. That way they've got as much information as possible in order to come back to you. However, as I say, unless you are the first person in history that I've ever heard of to get everybody to respond by your RSVP date, and as I say, if you do, please ping me an email and tell me how, because that's quite a trick. Accept it's going to happen. Hopefully not a large percentage of your guests, but accept it's going to happen and plan for a ring round, text round, whatever, the day after your RSVP deadline. That might sound a bit harsh, but honestly, that's the point of a deadline. The minute it's passed, you have the license to do a ring round. When I say you do a ring round, I'd actually suggest that you get somebody else to do it. As a planner, I do this a lot because I'm a third party. I'm not emotionally involved. It's much more difficult to sort of cajole people, badger people on your own behalf than it is to do it on somebody else's behalf. So you may know of somebody within your bridal party, somebody within your group of friends that could do that task for you, and I would suggest that you do. Best of luck with your planning, and as I said, if you do come up with 100% of your guests RSVPing by the deadline with all the information that you need them to RSVP with, please let me know how. Thank you.